God unleashes millions of monsters every 15 years to control human population. Humans attempted to resist, but the monsters are too powerful. The movie opens with a tale about what is known as the First Judgment Day. Then, from deep beneath the earth, swarms of monsters surged out from ordinary mines. They slaughtered millions and devastated cities. A full-scale war broke out against the monsters, and eventually, they were wiped out. At the locations of the old wells, defensive structures were erected, gates specifically built to shield humanity from future invasions. 15 years have gone by. The world has slowly begun to heal from the ordeal. Among the survivors is Laura, who now works at a school. She has a persistent yet unlucky admirer, Milton, whose date invitations she regularly turns down, likely due to lingering bitterness toward her ex-husband, Dave. He wasn't by Laura's side during Judgment Day, leaving her, pregnant at the time, to survive on her own. Dave and Laura share a 15-year-old son named Tyler, who spends most of his days hanging out at the skate park with his friends and girlfriend, Maddie. In his free time, he plays computer games and often finds himself caught in the middle of the strained relationship between his parents, who separated right after he was born. Meanwhile, tensions are rising. An eclipse is on the horizon, serving as one of the ominous signs of a potential monster invasion. On top of that, seismic activity is on the rise, prompting emergency inspections by the Protective Dome staff, while troubling reports dominate the news. A widespread die-off of fish has started across the globe, the very same phenomenon that occurred just before the First Judgment Day. Mass migration is yet another troubling sign. Everything is unfolding just as it did 15 years ago. While Tyler is spending the weekend at his dad's place, the phone rings. Dave receives a call from his old friend, Ted. He urges Dave to immediately bring his family to his bunker before the eclipse hits. Meanwhile, the first monster appears under the protective dome, quietly sneaking up the stairs. Meanwhile, Laura calls Dave. She's seen the news too and insists that he bring Tyler back home. Milton has secured a shelter, and she believes it's their only chance of survival. Dave assures her that, as Tyler's father, he'll keep him safe. Tyler gets a text, reads it, and slips out of the house unnoticed while his dad is still talking. Laura is frantic. Dave's place isn't safe, and he needs to bring Tyler to her right away. Dave agrees, but when he heads to Tyler's room, he finds it empty. Milton urges Laura to hurry. The shelter is quickly filling up, and time is running out. She tells him Tyler's missing, so Milton tracks his phone and locates him at the skate park. Tyler is indeed at the skate park with Maddie, who's visibly anxious. Her parents have left, and she's been left on her own. She's terrified and pleads with Tyler to stay with her. Tyler vows he'll never repeat his father's mistakes. He won't abandon Maddie. Suddenly, a sharp bird cry pierces the air. Massive flocks are flying rapidly in the same direction. Panic erupts in the park as people flee the town. Meanwhile, Dave heads to the park in search of Tyler. Caught in a massive traffic jam, he abandons his car and takes off on foot to find his son. Meanwhile, beneath the dome, a technician monitors the instruments closely. Suddenly, a monster lunges out and savagely rips the worker to pieces. Nearby soldiers open fire, but it's useless. Their regular bullets have no effect on the creature. Tyler and Maddie watch in terror as chaos unfolds all around them. Dave arrives, breathless, as Tyler explains that Maddie had no safe place to go. He couldn't just leave her behind. Laura pulls up with Milton, and they quickly gather everyone into the car, heading to the shelter where spots have already been reserved. With just a little over an hour remaining until the eclipse, tension mounts. They finally reach the shelter, but it's surrounded by military forces. Only women and children are being allowed inside. Dave turns to Tyler, asking him to look after his mother, then sends them both into the shelter. Tyler heads toward the shelter, but at the last moment, he turns and runs back to his father. Laura and Maddie race after him as Tyler shouts, "He's my father, I'm not leaving him." Just then, a message flashes on the digital board. The shelter is full, no more spots available. Dave proposes heading to Ted's bunker out in the desert, while Milton suggests the nearby school. It has a basement they could use to hide. They hit yet another traffic jam. Dozens of cars clog the road. With no other choice, they get out and continue on foot. The ground begins to shake as an earthquake hits. The eclipse has begun. Beneath the protective dome, monsters emerge, crawling, flying, swarming in vast numbers as they overrun the city. Dave urges everyone to leave the city. Staying here is far too dangerous. Dave moves to take the wheel, but Milton protests angrily. It's his car, and he insists he's the one who knows how to keep everyone safe. Milton and Dave get into a heated argument, until suddenly, a flying monster snatches Milton and carries him screaming into the sky. Laura lets out a heart-wrenching scream as Dave shoves her into the car, and they speed off, desperate to escape the nightmare unfolding around them. They drive along the canal. Dave reassures the children, everything is fine. The car is running out of gas. Dave wants to find a replacement for it. Dave jumps into a nearby car, only to find an elderly man hiding quietly in the back seat. He catches sight of a massive, blood-soaked creature resembling a skeletal bull. It's terrifyingly close. The monstrous bull went past the car, unaware of their presence, and starts eating on a lifeless body nearby. Dave carefully reverses the car back to where Laura and the kids are. Now, both vehicles are side by side, but they still have to figure out how to safely switch over to the new one. But the bull has spotted them. Just then, the old man steps out of the car and throws salt from a jar he'd been clutching, scattering it onto the creature. The bull freezes, giving Laura and the kids just enough time to dash into Dave's car. Moments later, the beast charges the old man and brutally rips him apart. Monsters flood the city from every direction. Meanwhile, Dave steers the car along a deserted mountain road. They finally reach Ted's hideout. It's solid and secure, built like a concrete bunker. Surveillance cameras are mounted on the roof, yet no one responds to their knocking. The heavy doors remain shut. Inside, Ted sits frozen as a gun pressed to his neck, with a shadowy figure looming behind him. A herd of monsters charges along the mountainside, stampeding directly toward the shelter. Dave seizes a tire iron, ready to defend his family, but just in time, the bunker doors swing open, and they all dash inside. Dave embraces Ted with relief. Inside the bunker are Ted's wife, Stella, and a quiet military man seated in the corner. Ted nods toward the man and says he's an old contact, Corporal Garrett Jensen. Meanwhile, the surveillance screens show the terrifying scene outside, monsters slamming against the bunker's entrance, trying to break through. Tension fills the room as everyone stays on edge. Maddie nervously asks how the monsters can sense them. Can they see through walls? Garrett gives a faint, grim smile and replies, they respond to light and heat. But if you ask me, I think they see our souls. They're the devil's spawn, Garrett adds solemnly, which means God exists too. He recalls that during the first Judgment Day, he was working at a refinery. When the monsters stormed the facility, he survived by diving into a pond of salty mud. The creatures wouldn't go near it. He sat buried in the muck, listening helplessly as the monsters tore through 150 of his coworkers and friends. Garrett is deeply lost in his story, unaware that Ted is subtly signaling Dave to grab a nearby knife. Dave catches on and discreetly picks it up. That's why it's called Judgment Day, Garrett continues grimly. Because on this day, it's the devil who holds the hammer. At that moment, something resembling a giant centipede slithers in from the street, slipping through a small gap in the mesh covering the window. Garrett volunteers to take the first watch. Ted offers the others a place to stay too, casting a meaningful glance in Dave's direction. Suddenly, Garrett draws his gun from its holster, pointing it at Dave and silently compelling him to drop the knife. Garrett said that he was on the run when he stumbled upon the hideout. Kind-hearted Stella allowed him inside, even though Ted had objected. Tyler lunges at Garrett, trying to wrestle the gun from him, but Garrett shoves him aside with ease. Dave steps in, trying to calm the corporal down. Then centipede-like creature latches onto Stella. Ted reacts instantly, tearing it off her neck and dousing it with salt. Dave seizes Garrett's gun and fires at the monster. Then they attended Stella's wound. Then Dave spots something terrifying. A massive, bull-like beast is heading their way. Dave knows they have to escape as the bunker won't hold. Outside, the bull monster slams its hooves against the doors. Ted refuses to leave. He says Stella won't make it out there in her condition. Stella gently insists that Ted leave with the rest of them, revealing there's a concealed tunnel beneath the bunker that stretches out toward the mountains. Garrett pleads to be brought along, promising he has a vehicle with a full tank. He says he can drive everyone to the gate as there are bunkers there, and since the monsters emerged from that spot, they won't return to it. Though the group remains skeptical, Garrett insists he's telling the truth. He claims he was only trying to survive. They finally agree to go. Dave looks at Garrett and says, "Get us there safely, and we'll let the past go." They gear up. Ted unveils a full stash of weapons. As the bull slams harder against the doors, inching closer to breaking through, the group makes a break for it, escaping into the tunnel just in time. As they reach the car, Stella suddenly falls ill. Tension rises, and Dave and Laura start arguing. She bitterly reminds him that they could have been safe in the shelter. Just then, Tyler notices something by the roadside. It's a monster's corpse lying still. Maddie cautiously steps closer, but suddenly, long tentacles shoot up from a hole beneath the creature, wrapping around her legs and yanking her downward. She screams in terror as Tyler and Dave rush in, pulling her free just in time. As they reach the peak of the mountain, they look out over the city. It's in ruins, engulfed in flames. When they return to the car, Dave tries to start it, but the engine won't start. Monsters emerge at the mountain, hastily charging straight at them. Garrett frantically works to start the engine. Stella, pale and weak, suddenly snatched the gun from his husband's hand. Ted pleads with her to give him the gun, but Stella turns away. She walks toward the approaching monsters, fully aware that her fate is sealed. Ted calls out to her, but Dave grabs him and forces him into the car before it's too late. In the nick of time, they manage to speed away, with swarms of monsters thundering after them in pursuit. As they drive, a crackling radio signal comes through. Reports say that nearly all the shelters were overrun and destroyed by the monsters. Laura gently places her hand on Dave's shoulder, and he gives her a reassuring stroke in return. They finally arrive at the gate. It's eerily empty, but the massive doors stand wide open. Garrett tells them the shelter is located in the basement. As they head that way, they realize the power is out. Garrett and Dave volunteer to restore it, while the rest, worried about Ted's back wound, go off in search of a first aid station. Dave manages to get the power back. Garrett explains that the gate had been fortified for a second wave and tons of salt had been pumped into it as a defense. They hurry back to rejoin the others. The countdown continues and only 2 hours remain until the eclipse ends. Garrett suggests they take shelter in a nearby chemical warehouse, saying that it is impenetrable and could be their best shot at surviving. Out of nowhere, a creature ambushes Garrett. He and Dave manage to overpower it after a fierce struggle, but the noise draws the attention of more monsters. Without warning, Garrett darts through a nearby doorway and shuts it tight behind him, leaving the rest stranded outside. He injects himself with an unknown substance. His veins bulge and turn black. Meanwhile, Dave rushes back to his family and tells Tyler to protect his mother while he goes to face what's coming. Dave plans to even the odds by channeling salt water through the tank's pipelines to repel the monsters. Before he goes, Laura kisses him gently and urges him to be careful. Dave crawls through the ventilation system and spots a monster feasting on its victim. Just a few feet away are the valves he needs to open. Carefully, he manages to reach them and twist one open, then salt water begins filling the nearby containers. Dave scrambles back through the vents, but the monster catches his scent and charges after him. He fights it off, hurling salt onto the creature, which disintegrates into dust. At the same time, the rest of the group is being hunted. Monsters have closed in and surrounded them. Tyler fires desperately, trying to hold off the monsters. Suddenly, Dave's voice crackles through the loudspeaker, urging them to activate the fire alarm. The creatures close in, tightening the circle. Ted turns to Tyler and says firmly, "Protect the family, son," before charging at the monsters with an axe. Several beasts leap onto him, tearing into him as he fights back with everything he has. He rushes to the panel and hits the fire alarm. Streams of salt water blast from the sprinklers, drenching the monsters. They shriek in agony, melting into heaps of bloody dust. As the eclipse fades, the remaining monsters retreat through the gate, vanishing back into the darkness from which they came. Laura and the kids rush outside, only to find Garrett standing nearby. Without warning, he fires and hits Tyler. He lifts the gun to finish the job. Laura throws herself over Tyler, shielding him with her body. Just then, Dave bursts onto the scene and swings a fire extinguisher with all his strength, knocking Garrett out cold. Suddenly, a massive creature bursts up from beneath the ground and grabs Garrett, dragging him into its gaping jaws and swallowing him whole. The others sprint to the medical station. Inside, they scramble to mix a concentrated saline solution into a pressurized cylinder as the monster thunders closer. It crashes against the doors. Just as it breaks through, Dave hurls the canister. The blast hits dead on, salt mist erupts through the air, the beast shrieks in agony, and its form disintegrates into ash. Laura throws her arms around Dave. They can hardly believe they're still alive. Holding each other close, both couples step outside into a broken but silent world. The city lies in ruins, but the nightmare has passed, for now.